strain on the system, we're going to reduce that to 3. So we're going to ask for 3 observations to be done by you and 3 to be done by the supervisor. And at the same time, we've also accordioned the timeline for that. And you'll see that in another slide further on about when we're suggesting you do these observations. We're going to try to start them mid-September and finish them by mid-November, just in case something happens on either end. We know some schools aren't starting till after Labor Day, which is, I think, September 8th, right? So we're trying to be respectful of that, and at the same time not linger too long into the system or into the calendar so that the system breaks down and we don't get all of our observations done. We would like the mentors to do their observations in real time when possible, either in person or over a virtual network. So if the student teacher is working virtually, if you have a way of watching them perform, that would be great. If they're in person in a school, you can watch them deliver the lessons. That's fine. We're going to work with you when it comes to that. It depends on the situation and what the setup is for your particular school, right? Some school buildings don't want student teachers even in the building at all. They want them to remain virtual, and we will respect that. We will just have to be innovative and creative to make sure that we get the observations we need. Supervisors are going to do all their observations virtually, live if possible. So if there's a way for them to actually see the student perform live via camera, that would be great. If not, then the student teacher can record the performance, and then we'll find a platform to upload it to so that it's accessible by the supervisor. We're doing that really because schools have indicated that they're trying to operate normally, but they really are trying to cut down on the numbers of visitors. Maybe you've heard that in your school districts. We don't want to put a strain on a system by including too many people into the arena when we don't have to. And certainly our supervisors are able to, view these performances and get a good sense between the lesson plan and then the performance about how the student teacher has done. So they will just be completely virtual, and that will be one less person to work with in your building. Of course, we want you to contact the supervisor, and Ms. Dubé will be, sending information once supervisors are all assigned for you to get together. We want you to chat, to conference when you need to, all of those kinds of things, because we know that's really important. We're not doing it to take people remotely out, but to try to preserve the health and safety of your buildings. Ed TPA, people are thinking, well, how's that going to look this year? Well, the students will have to decide upon a learning segment, and just as they've done in the past, they'll have to record in their videos, they'll have to analyze all their stuff, and that'll be done whether whether the student teacher is either inside or doing it virtually. We will make whatever modifications we need to make that work. So it may be modified to some extent, but that's still an important process, we think, for students to observe themselves teaching and to reflect upon that. So we're going to try to keep that as best we can the same. So what about student teachers who've chosen not to do student teaching, in a school setting for various health reasons, because that does exist. What do we do? So those candidates will be provided. The state, believe it or not, I kept waiting for it, but this past Friday, finally issued written guidance and said that for students who are not in a virtual setting, unable to work in a school, that we can provide a set of assignments that's going to be commensurate to the time they would spend in school buildings, right, for the 15 months. And it would vary about the different kinds of assignments that we could give them. They could be able to be at TPA with some modifications. They can write and teach lessons. They can view and rate teaching performances. They can teach it to a cohort group of people. They can analyze case studies, and evaluate evaluate curricular materials, much the same way that they would as if they were in the classroom. The only thing we won't have, we'll have student data coming in, but maybe case studies will help them evaluate and assess student learning. So those plans, those particular things haven't been completely finalized yet. We've got some good leads on some really exciting stuff for them. But we all know that the best way for this to happen is for students to be, our candidates to be with your students and with you. We know that's the best way of doing this. And so this is why we're so grateful to you for allowing students to do this. But in the absence of health getting in the way and people putting their lives literally at risk walking in, we have to have some kind of compensation for that somehow. And so that's what we've done, just to be fair to the students. Please, if anything comes across to you during this meeting, please be aware that we are committed to making this work for you and for the student teachers and for us. We're committed to you to make this work. So we have our goals. They're pretty simple. For the mentors, we want you to have student teachers who are going to assist you, who are going to help you in any way they can to be a help in times of stress and uncertainty. And of course, for you to evaluate their performance, but we want them to be a help, not a hindrance to you. And I think you'll find our student teachers do a pretty fine job of being really worth their weight in gold. So I'm putting my neck out there saying that, but not too much, because I'm pretty certain that's true. For supervisors, we of course want them to evaluate students consistently and fairly. And they're not going to be the best of situations because they're doing everything virtually. But again, we're going to err on the side of caution and safety. So we're going to make that work. And then for student teachers, of course, student teachers, we want you to get your license. We want you to go out there and show your good stuff to the world. We want you to be confident about what you know and what you can do. And we're hoping that this will give you the skills to teach. And it'll give you even more skills to figure out, how do I do this in a different kind of teaching setting, right? So there's a way to make it a learning experience for you as well. All right, so I gave you my little preview, long preview than I thought needed, but we needed to cover those COVID things. And if there are any questions, please write them into the chat. And if we don't get to them tonight, again, we will record this. We will have all this written down, and we'll be glad to put them in some kind of frequently asked questions document. So in the folders that I gave you access to about 2 hours prior to the meeting, I put these particular documents. 1 through 10 is in both student teacher and in the mentor teachers folders. The MO1 and MO2 documents, which is a mentor letter and the mentor stipend form, that's just in the mentors documentation, and the supervisors will have their own folder as well. But pretty much 1 through 10 is the same thing, and those are the things I'm going to cover tonight. So our agenda, and if you need extra materials, there'll be directions to some electronic forms on the welcome letters. You can get them via the MyMount portal that students can show you, because I'm going to show them, and then the shared folders via the Google Drive. That's how you'll be able to get some of those extra materials. So the agenda pretty much follows what we're going to talk about now in this last 40 minutes or so. So, in Ohio, we have a 4-tiered licensure structure. Student teachers are going to be getting their resident educator license. That's the first license they get in Ohio, and that's for 4 years. And as they continue in to the licensure program, they can become a professional educator, a senior, and a lead professional, and each one of those advances after every 5 years. And of course, with those are afforded different opportunities in the state of Ohio. If you're a lead professional educator, you might earn extra pay for serving on committees. There might be extra professional development that is given to you. You may become senior educators within your district, lead teachers as an example. But our students start out as the resident educator license level, and that's the license they're working for. To do that, they have to have a bachelor's degree, and they have to be in an approved program of teacher preparation, which we are approved by the Ohio Department of Higher Education. They have to have current background checks if they're working in your school situation. They have to have examinations prescribed by the State Board of Education, the Ohio Assessment for Educators. They have to pass those in order to get a license. And they have to have, in Ohio, it's a kind of a unique thing, but they have to have 12 semester hours of reading for early childhood, middle childhood, and intervention specialist license. And that's a pretty heavy load. But again, we know how important reading is for any content area. Whatever content area you're teaching in, you're some way, somehow, also a teacher of reading, whether it's for content or it's to learn how to. So again, that goes back to our pride in having a really strong reading core. In order to get a license, you have to be getting a license from an accredited licensure program. So we've been granted accreditation until 2026 through CAPE, which is a national association, from ODE, which is the state. And then our Science of Reading has an extra accreditation called Accreditation Plus through the International Dyslexia Association, and that's through 2024. So students can be assured that they are in an approved program, and then when they get their license, it's bona fide and can be used for teaching. When we look at how we're measuring the effectiveness of teachers, we really hang our hats on the Ohio Standards for the Teaching Profession. It was written by classroom teachers under 7 standards, and they're not, they've not been noticed by you, I'm sure, mentor teachers, because they're really part of what you do as you're being evaluated in the field with the OTES. And the standards were written to help guide teachers to become effective teachers. So using a rubric, if you're not scoring at the higher levels, it kind of tells you what you can do to be better in a specific area. And that's exactly how we've done our evaluation tool. When you look at it finally, you're going to see in the content specific, or not content specific, but the instructional section of it, that it looks very much like OTES, because we've used that on purpose to kind of dovetail into the field when students are out there. So just as a reminder for you, the 7 standards that we look at are, well, first of all, the students, right? And content, assessment, and instruction. So how well teachers understand that and are able to use that for student learning and for the student's advantage. And then 5, 6, and 7 are about the learning environment, the collaboration, communication, and professional responsibility and growth. And some of those standard titles are exactly the same components of the OTES, and they're components of the DICE form as well. So our student teaching experience forms, I'm going to kind of go through one by one here, and I've kind of got a picture on here for you. Again, going to the particular folder, you'll be able to find these labeled the same title. So for every lesson that a student teacher must do, they have to complete a lesson plan form. It's actually a planning template, and we have them use the same template over and over again because it was crafted by a committee of people led by Dr. Bendis. It was crafted to kind of match what students have to do for EdTPA, which requires that reflective thinking. So as teachers complete this, the student teachers, they're going to find that they are become better and better at those EdTPA entries that they have to produce at the end of student teaching. For every lesson that is observed, this has to be used. For every time there's an EdTPA lesson, this has to be used. And it really should be given to you, mentor teachers,